He pointed at the deep violet stock of my rifle, a sneer twisting his lips. "What is that, Lieutenant? A lipstick tube? You gonna use that thing to put on makeup for the targets?" The crowd of seasoned soldiers around him erupted in laughter. I felt a hot flush of shame creep up my neck, but my hands remained steady, my face a mask of cold calm. I was an outsider, a ghost with a joke of a weapon, but they didn't know the promise behind that color. Before I tell you what happened next, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Now, let me tell you exactly how it all began. Dawn was breaking over the Nevada desert, painting the sky in pale shades of orange and pink as I pulled my faded sedan to the edge of the lot. This was Blackstone Proving Grounds, a place where legends were forged in gunpowder and steel. The air already hummed with energy. Engines rumbled, boots crunched on gravel, and the sharp clatter of rifles being assembled filled the morning. 50 of America's finest shooters had gathered here, a stark line drawn between them. On one side, the battlefield veterans, men with combat scars, and the 1,000-yard stare that spoke of firefights in places I only knew from maps. On the other, the competition experts, clad in spotless, sponsor-laden jackets, their confidence born on manicured ranges. I stepped out of my car, feeling 100 pairs of eyes on me. At 27, I had trained my movements to be spare, precise, and efficient. I lifted a long, plain black case from the trunk. No logos, no team patches, just the simple, unadorned hardware of someone who travels light and means business. My gaze swept the field, a calm, calculated assessment of the terrain and the competition. A young private at the check-in tent, barely out of basic, pointed me forward. "Registration, ma'am." His tone was polite, but his eyes flickered past me, drawn to the larger, more intimidating rifles slung over other shoulders. I just nodded and walked on. Inside the tent, the process was brisk. Names were called, numbers assigned. When I signed in, the officer barely glanced up. "Donovan," he said flatly. "Never heard of you." "Which unit?" "Air Force," I replied, my voice even. A smirk touched his lips. "Well, good luck. These Army and Marine guys eat ranges like this for breakfast." He handed me my number. 49, last in the firing order. It figured. Outside, under the canopies, the real show had begun. Scopes gleamed as they were mounted, barrels were polished to a mirror shine, and tripods locked into place with satisfying clicks. The bravado and laughter hushed for a moment when I knelt and opened my case. A few quiet gasps cut through the silence. There it lay, a perfectly maintained AXMC, but its finish was a blazing, unapologetic violet. It looked like it had been dipped in twilight itself. The quiet didn't last. A few chuckles broke out, then spread like wildfire. "What is that, a parade piece?" someone muttered. Another voice, louder this time, added, "Guess we're running a fashion contest now, boys." Heads turned, grins wide and mocking. Sergeant Leo Vance pushed through the crowd, his large frame carrying the weight of 3 combat tours and an ego to match. He stopped in front of me, looking down his nose at my weapon. "This ain't a car show, Lieutenant," he boomed, his voice dripping with authority. "War doesn't come in pretty colors." The laughter roared in response, a wave of ridicule washing over me. I ignored them, keeping my eyes on my work. With smooth, practiced efficiency, I slid the bolt into place, locked the bipod, checked the scope, and chambered a test round. My fingers brushed against a small pendant at my neck, a chip of purple glass on a silver chain, a silent promise. Major Ethan Brooks, the range officer, stepped forward, his presence instantly commanding silence. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Long Range Precision Championship." He unrolled a chart. Targets are staged at 700, 1,000, 1,800, 2,700, 3,800, and 4,900 meters. He paused for effect. The final round, 5,900 meters. Unbroken territory. A murmur went through the crowd. Nearly 4 miles. It was an impossible distance. Competitors will fire in reverse order of registration. Brooks continued. That means Lieutenant Donovan will open each round. Every eye in the place swung back to me and my purple rifle. The pressure was immense. As I walked to the first station, The whispers followed me like ghosts. 700 meters. It should have been routine, but for me, it was everything. Shooter ready. Brooks called. I dropped prone, the gritty sand pressing into my gear. My heart was pounding, but on the outside, I forced myself to be stone. 3 breaths. Half exhale. Squeeze. The crack of the rifle echoed across the valley. A heartbeat later, a metallic ping answered back. The spotter's voice was laced with surprise. Hit. Dead center. The laughter was gone. In its place, a stunned, grudging silence. I rechambered around without emotion. This was only the beginning. The 1,000-meter stage did little to change their expressions. The wind had picked up, making the flags twitch and kicking up little dust devils across the range. I dropped prone, repeating the ritual. The familiar crack, the brief wait, and the satisfying ping of another center strike. The murmurs that followed now carried a different weight. 2 in a row wasn't luck. From the corner of my eye, I saw Sergeant Vance fold his arms, his mocking grin replaced by a sharp, analytical stare. No rookie pulls that off twice. As we moved to the 1,800-meter line, the heat began to shimmer off the desert floor, making the distant targets dance. This was where skill started to separate from luck. I took my place, ignoring the intense scrutiny. As I settled in, my mind drifted. I wasn't just on a range. I was back on a wooden bench in the backyard, 16 years old, my twin sister Chloe beside me. Our father watched with quiet pride as we hit targets with an accuracy that unnerved our neighbors. Chloe's grin flashed in my memory, vivid and bright. "Don't miss, Ratch," she'd whispered, nudging my shoulder. A promise etched into my soul. I blinked, the memory dissolving back into the desert heat. I breathed, squeezed, and fired. Another perfect shot. This time, the silence that followed was heavy, thick with disbelief. 3 for 3. Impossible consistency. As I walked back from a line, Vance stepped into my path. "Where'd you learn to shoot like that, Lieutenant?" he asked, his voice low and insistent. "Here and there, Sergeant," I replied calmly, not breaking my stride. His jaw tightened. He wasn't used to being dismissed. The competition rolled on to 2,700 meters. This was where the textbooks ended and instinct, or something more, began. Wind shear, mirage, air density. Every variable was an enemy. I set down a small digital weather meter and opened my waterproof notebook. The pages were filled with lines of complex formulas, my own language of ballistics. Numbers for spin drift, barometric pressure, the Coriolis effect. Vance and a few others watched me scribble my calculations. Their faces a mixture of confusion and suspicion. "Too complicated," one of them scoffed. I ignored them, sliding back into position. My breathing changed, shifting into a rhythm they didn't recognize. 5 shallow breaths in, 1 deep inhale hold, then a slow, half exhale before the squeeze. The purple rifle barked. The ping was faint but unmistakable. Dead center. In the bleachers, a forgotten figure leaned forward in his wheelchair. Retired Colonel Walter Briggs, a man most of the active duty personnel didn't even recognize. "That's Helios breathing," he muttered to his companion, his voice a gravelly whisper that carried more weight than a shout. Vance's sharp ears caught it. Helios. He rolled the word in his mind. It wasn't in any field manual he knew. While the other shooters took their turns, he pulled out his phone, typing furiously. He searched every open military record. Nothing. No Rachel Donovan with his skill set. No Project Helios. No connection. I was a ghost in the system. No competition results. No service awards. No deployment logs. His suspicion was hardening into something more dangerous. At the water station, Major Brooks intercepted me, offering a bottle. "Impressive work," he said, his voice low. "Not bad for your first run here." I accepted it with a nod, my eyes measuring him. He leaned closer. "You're holding steady, Commander." The word hung in the air. My eyes narrowed just a fraction, but it was enough. Brooks corrected himself instantly, a faint, nervous smile on his face. "I mean, Lieutenant. Keep it tight. Orders from General Whitaker. Procedure stays intact." He walked off, leaving me with a cold knot in my stomach. I glanced over and saw Vance, halfway through cleaning his bolt, frozen in place. He had heard it. Commander, General Whitaker. He knew, without a doubt, that I was not who I appeared to be. The game had changed. By the time we reached the 4,900-meter line, the field had been whittled down to 6. The sky had turned a bruised, angry gray, and the wind now buffeted us with punishing gusts, snapping the canvas canopies overhead like gunshots. Major Brooks had to shout against the gale to be heard. This round decides our finalists. I lay prone once more, the wind tearing at my hair, whipping loose strands across my face. My pendant slipped from my collar, a flash of deep purple swinging briefly before I tucked it back in. I took a moment, steadying myself against the storm in my own racing heart. The rifle roared, and for a heart-stopping moment, I thought the wind had taken it. Then the call came back. Center mass. Even the veteran spotter couldn't hide his awe. The silence after the call was absolute. A woman with a purple rifle had just conquered a distance in a storm that no one else would have even attempted. When the scores were posted, only 3 names remained: Rachel Donovan, Paul Garrison, and a weathered Marine sergeant named Doyle. The final shot was next, 5,900 meters. Unbroken territory. The storm broke in full as we took our positions. Sergeant Doyle went first. He was a rock, but the wind was a monster. His shot sailed wide. He rolled aside, his face a mask of disappointment. Vance settled in next. Lightning flashed, illuminating his determined expression. He adjusted for windage, breathed, and squeezed. The round struck the outer ring of the target. A wave of applause rippled from the bleachers. It wasn't a bullseye, but at that distance in this weather, it was a heroic, extraordinary shot. He rose with a faint smirk, convinced he had won. Then it was my turn. The crimson rifle caught a glint of lightning as I lowered myself behind it. My notebook lay open beside me, the pages flapping wildly in the wind, threatening to tear away. I whispered my adjustments, my voice lost in the thunder. One deep inhale, the world narrowing to the scope, the target, and Chloe's promise. The trigger broke. The shot cracked against the gale. Seconds stretched into an eternity. Then, impossibly, the faint, high-pitched ping. Hit. Center mass. 5,900 meters. The spotter's voice trembled with disbelief. The range froze. The only sound was the howling wind. As I rose to my feet, something snapped in Vance. Rage and wounded pride overtook him. "I want our weapon inspected," he bellowed, stepping forward. "Nobody makes that shot clean. Not in this storm." The crowd erupted in murmurs. I simply tilted my head, my calm exterior infuriating him further. Just then, the command tent flap opened, and General Cole Whitaker emerged. Silver-haired and imposing even without a uniform, his authority was unmistakable. "Proceed with the inspection," he ordered, his voice cutting through the chaos. Technicians swarmed my position. They stripped the rifle down, checking every component. They found no hidden electronics, no illegal modifications, just a weapon built with a watchmaker's precision and maintained with a surgeon's care. The purple finish was chipped in a few places, revealing hard field use underneath. As they worked, I spoke softly, almost to myself. "My sister built it. She painted it purple. The inspection finished." "The weapon is clean, sir," the lead tech reported to Whitaker. Whitaker's gaze swept across the remaining competitors. "This championship is not yet finished," he declared, his voice ringing with power. "Verification protocol will now commence." Sock'em round. 6,200 meters. A collective gasp went through the crowd. The Sock'em round was a myth, a legendary test whispered about in barracks, but never seen. It wasn't about marksmanship. It was about being a weapon. The Sock'em round was designed to simulate the brutal reality of combat. It wasn't a static line. It was a dynamic course with 6 targets at staggered ranges, requiring sprinting between positions under a strict time limit. In the middle of a torrential downpour, it was pure hell. Vance, his pride demanding he prove his worth, volunteered to go first. Rain hammered the ground as he took his position. A siren wailed, and the timer began. He moved with the explosive power of a seasoned warrior, sprinting, dropping prone, firing, hitting. He rose, ran, and fired again. His chest was heaving, his movements sharp and precise. One by one, 5 targets fell to his shots. Only the last one, the 6,200-meter plate, escaped him. His round clanged off the frame, a near miss. Still, the audience roared. 5 out of 6 in a storm was the stuff of legend. He straightened, sweat and rain mixing on his face, his honor intact. Then I stepped forward. I didn't run. I flowed. My movements carried none of the strain that marked his. I moved from post to post like water, finding its level. My purple rifle speaking in a steady, deadly rhythm. Crack, ping, crack, ping. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 targets fell. My pace never broke. My breathing never hitched. I slid into the final position, 6,200 meters of storm-swept desert between me and the final plate. Lightning illuminated the target for a split second. I touched the purple pendant at my neck, a final, silent communion. I exhaled. The shot cut through the storm and the distance. Ping. Center mass. The spotter's voice shook. All targets hit. All targets hit. The crowd was stunned into silence. Even the storm seemed to hold its breath. General Whitaker stepped closer, his words carrying over the rain. Assessment complete. Major Donovan, your status is confirmed. Major, not lieutenant. The revelation slammed across the field like a physical blow. Vance stood frozen, water dripping from his cap, his face a mask of shock and dawning comprehension. This hadn't been a contest. It had been a test. A brutal, elaborate evaluation, and he had been a pawn in it. My posture shifted, the quiet observer replaced by the commanding officer I truly was. I secured my rifle, my face composed. Just then, a runner burst from the command tent, soaked and breathless. Message from Ops. Guardian team stranded on Alaska Ridge. Immediate fire support required. Whitaker snapped around. Casualties. 2 wounded, sir. Enemy forces converging. My composure finally cracked. A cold dread gripped me. Who leads the team? I demanded, my voice sharp. The messenger hesitated. Lieutenant Mark Donovan, Major. Your brother. The words struck me harder than any bullet. I closed my eyes for a single, painful moment, then opened them, the mask of command sliding back into place, harder and colder than before. We move now. The flight to Alaska was a blur of engine hum and tactical readouts. Vance sat across from me, the tension between us replaced by the shared weight of the mission. On the ground, a blizzard raged, but we moved as one, guided by years of training. From a frozen ridgeline, we set up our positions. He took the patrol leaders. I took the 6 guarding the cave where my brother's team was pinned down. Through the storm, my purple rifle sang its deadly song one last time, clearing the path for their escape. It was no longer a symbol of mockery, but an instrument of salvation, a promise to Chloe fulfilled by protecting our brother. Have you ever been judged solely by your appearance, only to prove everyone wrong? What would you have done in my shoes when Vance challenged me? Do you think true skill eventually speaks for itself, no matter how unconventional the package it comes in? I often wonder what would have happened if I had backed down that day, if I had let their laughter silence me. But then I remember my sister, and I know I never had a choice. If my story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories like this. Share this with someone who knows what it's like to defy expectations and prove their worth against all odds. I read every single comment you leave, and your stories inspire me to keep sharing mine. More incredible true stories from my life are waiting on your screen. Watch those next, and I'll see you tomorrow with another story that changed everything for me.